This is Tiger Cats Postgame on the Ticats Audio Network.
Well, maybe a little more drama than we were hoping for here in Hamilton on a Friday night, but the Ticats get it done. They book their spot in the 2021 CFL playoffs with a 26-18 win over the BC Lions. Louie B alongside Andy Fantuz breaking down the Ticats' big win. Lots coming up here on Ticats postgame. You just heard it from RJ there. Coach O is going to join us. We'll hear from Jeremiah Masoli, who surpassed the 15,000-yard mark. And Ticats fans, young and old, are excited about the victory here tonight, Andy.
Oh, big win here tonight. And, sometimes it's nice to win those close games. They had a couple blowout wins, and before that, lost a couple tight games. So it's good to see them be able to close out one that kind of came down to the wire. And I think the score on the scoreboard is a little different than the way the game was playing out. But regardless, clinched a playoff berth and a strong effort from really all phases of the game.
If you put that there, Michael Riley, 330 yards on 33 completions with the interception. Jeremiah Masoli, efficient again, and it seems like the Ticats have a game plan in the first half, and then they have a game plan in the second half. And like you said, it was a little nervous. There's some nerve-wracking moments here right to the very end, that ball going into the end zone. But these are the games that the Ticats can take. They can look at third win in a row and build confidence with the remaining two games heading into the playoffs.
Yes, they certainly can. And, you get a guy like Michael Riley quarterbacking a team, and you always have a chance. And he's proven to do this in this league for many years. So for the Ticats to withhold that push and to stay on top was a big confidence builder for the Cats. And they're going to look at this film tonight, and they're going to see a lot of things that they want to clean up. But there is also a lot of shining moments that they're going to take away as positives and hopefully continue to build as the final two games of the season.
Yeah, Jeremiah Masoli has now thrown the ball 144 times and has not thrown an interception. 154 times. He's got 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But more importantly, and Jeremiah will say this when he joins us later, I'm sure, more importantly than the individual statistics, more importantly than the 15,000 career passing yards that Jeremiah Masoli surpassed tonight, he'll be happy with the fact that the team's won their last 3 games. And that's what it comes down to. We talk about individual stats. We've brought it up throughout the week. The Ticats don't have a 100-yard receiver yet this season. The Ticats didn't hit 100 yards. Didn't have another, Don Jackson finished with 80 yards tonight, didn't have a 100-yard rusher. Those numbers, those statistics, fans will look at them, but the players don't care, do they? Because if the team wins, who cares about individual statistics?
I couldn't agree more. The team is spreading the ball around effectively, and everybody's getting involved and everybody's contributing, and you're going to have a better outcome when the defense can't rely on a single player or a couple players. And, they still eclipsed 100 yards rushing. I think 124 rushing yards for the team. And Jeremiah had over 250 passing yards. So, and he was efficient, and he took care of the football. Like you said, that's now 7 football games where the Tiger Cats have not thrown an interception. And that's a recipe to have success going into the playoffs and seeing where it comes from there.
And there were a lot of questions about the Ticats' offensive line, and I think we saw some snaps that, I think Coulter Woodmansey, I think the rookie Yips might have gotten I don't want to say the best of him. Jeremiah Masoli doing some great recovery, getting a couple of low snaps, high snaps, making something happen. And Masoli's the right guy to be in there for that. But one quarterback sack allowed for an offensive line that hadn't played together until game 12? That's really impressive. And we talked a lot about the offensive line in the first 2 weeks when, Masoli was getting sacked 4, 5, 6 times. Credit where credit is due, because this offensive line, to Coach Mike Gibson, to Chris Van Zyl, to Brandon Revenberg, those veterans, and all those guys who were able to step up with the next man up mentality. One quarterback sack, 100 yards rushing on the ground, a lot to be proud of with the offensive line.
it's night and day from the start of the season, and you can see that they're gelling and they're getting some confidence and they're getting a lot of push off the ball. Really all phases, the running game, the run pass option, the pass protection. You can see the growth throughout the season, and that is just critical going into that playoff stretch. Credit where credit's due. And, BC Lions have had struggles getting after the quarterback all year, but that don't take anything away from the offensive line. Like, they played well tonight, and 124 rushing yards, 1 sack against. That's impressive stats, no matter who you're playing.
Yeah, and I think to that point, Andy, I mean, we saw a BC Lions team in that last drive. Like, they went into that last drive knowing that this was it for them. And the Ticats defense stepped up. Like, and I think that's, I think they might look at those 2 play calls, quarterback sneak on, right? And I'm not one to question the play call in any sense because Tommy Condell has forgotten more about football than I'll ever learn. But to be able to hold off a desperate football team for the 3rd week in a row the way they did, I think that speaks really well for going into the playoffs because you can look at this quarter, you can look at those last games and say, we've faced adversity and now we know how to close out football games. There's a lot to build on this game despite the strong finish from BC.
Yeah, there is, because if you were on the other side of the coin and you're looking at BC's effort and their will to win, their fight in this game, they were making a lot of contested 50-50 ball catches. Like Mike Riley was getting hit, and he kept going and kept going. Ended up with over 300 yards, like you mentioned. And if I was the coach of the Lions, I would be happy with the courage and the fight of my team, and yet it still was not enough to overcome the dominance of the Tiger Cats. So you got to be happy if you're Mark Washington and that defense, and overall with Coach O and the whole team, right?
Like you said, we're going to be joined by Coach O in just a little bit. I'm sure there's going to be some things the Ticats are going to look at this game and think we could have been a lot better. And one of those things would have been on second down conversion. The Ticats were 4 of 15 on second down. You got to be better than that. And again, this goes back to what we were talking about at Tiger Cats at the half, is that there were certain times where it felt like the Ticats deserved to be up more, but at the same time, it did kind of fit the way the game went. The Ticats weren't as dominant as I thought they would be tonight.
No, and those procedure penalties that we talked about in the first half really affect that stat, because that's four second down plays that would have been second and short or second and medium that were now second and long. And so that comes into play in all those hidden yards that we talked about from those penalties, not only getting a 5-yard penalty, but also losing out on 30 plus, 20 plus yards. That plays a big toll. But overall, I agree with you that the game was closer than I expected, and the Lions were able to do a lot more offensively than I expected.
And that comes down to, like we were just saying, the BC Lions were a desperate football team. The BC Lions were a football team that needed to win this game, that were still in the hunt, as opposed to the Ottawa Redblacks, who weren't really in the hunt. They just kind of had something to play for. The Edmonton, let's be fair. The BC Lions were legitimately still, if they had won this game, they could have made some noise. They needed to win this game, and they looked desperate near the end. But credit to the Ticats defense. When they needed to make stops, they did. They did in the first drive of the game where they, a 8-minute drive, they held to just 3 points, and they did it right at the end where it looked like BC was pushing. It looked like they'd almost converted the onside kick right there at the end. Might have had a couple more seconds to put something together. But credit to the Ticats defense because, again, they fly under the radar sometimes, but they stepped up and held BC to just 18 points, holding their opponents under 20 points. In the Canadian Football League, you've played enough games. To hold your opponent to under 20 points, you're doing something right defensively.
Yeah, certainly. You certainly are. And with that many yards against, to have less than 20 points is even more impressive. But going back to that onside kick, I actually thought it was BC ball at first look, and I'm very surprised they did not at least review that because it's such a key moment in the game. But, regardless, like the Ticats now single-handedly effectively knocked out 3 teams in a row. Like if you want to count bounties this year, you got 3 already, and you got a chance for 2 more in the playoffs, or potentially 3. So, a lot of teams will be looking at this Cats, looking for revenge next year.
Yeah, you mentioned Ticats 124 yards on the ground. The BC Lions in just over, the time of difference of time of possession was just about 4 minutes, but the BC Lions ran 20 more plays offensively. The BC Lions ran 67 plays on offense. The Ticats ran 47. So, again, what does that mean when the defense is on the field a little bit longer, but the offense seems to be doing everything right, but you're still making all the stops defensively?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to look at this game and think that you could have been better, and that's one of them. You want to get off the field defensively, and the Lions were, multiple drives. They were able to continue to convert those second and longs or second and mediums, and that was really what kept them in the game and kept that defense on the field. So, yeah, you don't want to there's a lot to improve on here, but
it's hard to nitpick.
It's hard to nitpick. I mean, you won the game. You're going to the playoffs, and you still had 124 yards rushing. You still had over 250 yards passing, and you still kept BC to under 20 points. And most importantly, you had 0 turnovers. Special teams held their own. I wouldn't say it was a win or loss, but it overall, you got to look at this and be happy, really, in all aspects. Overall, just there's always room for improvement. Nobody's ever played the perfect game.
I'm glad you used a Coach O-ism, because I was about to use a Coach O-ism, a different one. Nobody ever has played a perfect game. They're still striving for it. The Coach O that was in my head was that it's hard to win football games, and I think this was one of those games where, yes, when the Ticats blow out the Red Blacks, when they blow out the Edmonton Elks, you can say that, and it's so cliche. But I feel like this game, if you watch this game, and when Coach comes on and says it's hard to win football games, I will nod my head in agreement and say yes. This wasn't easy. There was nothing easy about this game for the Ticats, which I think bodes well for them, because they did face adversity, and unlike those games against Ottawa or against Montreal, against Toronto, they finished it off. Because I think the Ticats a month ago, maybe the BC Lions score there at the end. Maybe they get the convert to tie it up, because I think that's the difference between the Ticats now and the Ticats a month ago, is that they've faced that adversity. They've been through it, and they're a better team because of it.
Yeah, the course of a football season, it's a lot like life, really. It's not about perfection; it's about progression. And even though we're always focusing on being perfect and trying to look at that, it's really just about progressing, getting better week to week. And there were certain aspects of this game where I wouldn't necessarily say it was better than last week, but the key one, like you just said, is the finish and able to win that close game. So now you get a team that's had a bunch of different lessons through the season, some good, some bad, but all effectively lessons. And now they're going down into the final game, the biggest game of the year, playing for first place next week. And you put it all together, and we'll see what's going to happen. I mean, you got a great opportunity to go into Toronto and prove your dominance and earn that potential playoff bye.
The second game of the doubleheader tonight really has no effect on the Ticats, but we will let you know that the Edmonton Elks are hosting the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The game that everybody's going to be paying attention to, I guess the 2 games, obviously with the Ticats already in second when they move to 7-5 on the year through the 12 games. Everybody's going to be watching the Toronto Argonauts taking on the Ottawa Red Blacks tomorrow in Ottawa. Montreal and Winnipeg wrap up the weekend tomorrow night. But you mentioned it, the Toronto Argonauts, the Ticats' biggest game of the season is the next one. It's going to be a tough task in Toronto. And again, it's something that Coach had said throughout the week, is that when you're winning, you don't worry about what other teams are doing. You just worry about on how you can be better than you were the week before. And that's a good place for the Ticats to be in. It's not somewhere you're always in. Sometimes you're relying on other teams to control your destiny. But for the Ticats to be able to control their own destiny the next 2 games, there's no outside distractions. It's all about what you can do, not what other teams do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Toronto's been playing pretty well, but this Ticat team has faced them 3 times already this year. Had a pretty convincing win the first time in the Labor Day Classic, and then 2 heartbreaking losses by 1 point each, I believe, right? And so they got an opportunity to really make a statement and go against. You got the 2 best teams in the East going against each other next week, and so whoever wins that game deserves to be leading the standings going into the final week of the season.
Yeah. All right, time to name our performer of the game, presented by Hercules Tires. Ride on our strength. And we had said it before the game. We had said it at halftime. I am very, very, very happy that we can name this guy our performer of the game.
Welcome back, Brandon Speedy B. Banks.
Yes.
Great game tonight. 6 catches, 75 yards, and a big touchdown, and a couple nice returns as well. Just really made an impact all over the field, and you could see the excitement amongst the team, amongst the sideline, and especially in the stadium when he caught that touchdown. And it was just it looked easy for us, but I tell you, that's not easy. It's just when you're as fast as Speedy B, you kind of just wide open like that. But he still had to make a nice catch over his shoulder, and it was excellent. It was a great throw, great catch, great play, and it really electrified the stadium. And I think you could see his demeanor change for the rest of the game after that play.
All right, it's time to get exclusive access to the coaching room. Time to check in with Coach O, presented by Access Storage. And Coach Orlando Steinauer, thanks so much for joining us. 3 wins in a row. You guys control your own destiny. Something you said earlier this week is that when you win games, you don't have to worry about what other teams are doing. And I feel like a victory tonight goes a long way in that point, is that, I mean, you guys do control your own destiny at that point. How much of that is a message in the locker room?
Well, I feel like it's not even really talked about, to be honest with you. They know what it is, right? And to me, that just deters from the focus and what really matters, and that's really the practice, the play, the quarter that's in front of us. And so we don't really use that as motivation. Everybody just kind of knows that we go out and win every game, and that's all we can do. We can't control what happens with other teams. So our messaging has been the same since training camp. Obviously, people do understand scenarios, but it's not used as messaging or motivation.
Coach, since your first bye week, it seems like every game there's been a bit of progression and a nice lesson learned, either a positive or negative lesson in a win or defeat. But what's a takeaway from tonight that you think is going to help this football team down the road?
Just that all the games are probably going to be like this. Like, it's the chances of just blowing people out and stuff, those are far and few between. The competition is going to get stronger, and people that are facing elimination are going to play just a little bit harder. And so to think that you're just going to blow people out, that's probably not how we're going to win out, right? So that's kind of the messaging we're bringing.
Coach, to that point, though, I mean, like a month ago, in a similar situation with the opposing team coming down, down a touchdown, marching down the field, the result went a different way. How much of those losses did you take to put into this game, or do you feel like the team took into this play to take the adversity you learned in that to move forward and be a better football team today?
Well, all you can really ask for is to be in a similar situation and have a different response. And that's what happened. So I think, I still think we got to do a better job of just knocking that ball down outright. But at the end of the day, you don't complain about win. You don't gloss over things that could be better. But you also know that the end result is a win.
Definitely a resilient team tonight. BC put together a lot of offensive production, yet still held them to under 20 points with 18. You had a bit of adversity so far against the Argos next week. Are you having any thoughts of that game yet, or are you just going to enjoy this win and think about it tomorrow kind of thing.
Yeah, I always want them to enjoy the win because winning's not easy. And you don't know each week how it's going to turn out, no matter how good of a practice week you have. We know we got our hands full when we go down to QEW. And definitely we'll be looking forward to that matchup. But in the meantime, we'll definitely enjoy this one.
Coach, just real quick, I mean, the offensive line, we've talked about a lot throughout the season, and you know, you praised Coach Gibson earlier this week and what he's been able to do when it comes to all, you know, next man up mentality, being able to plug guys in. But one sack, you rush for 124 yards. I wasn't expecting a game like this. What are your thoughts on what you saw in the offensive line up front?
Well, I just thought that we were able to handle their four-man rush for the most part. They did get us out of the pocket, but we were able to make plays. And, again, I think, games start to begin to be won during preparation. And I feel like our coaching staff does a great job of that, and the player's job is always to execute. But specifically to the O-line, anytime that sacks are always the big thing that everybody looks at, but it's also if you're hurried, right? Being close on the D-line counts too. And I feel like we had opportunities to, basically throw the balls that we wanted to throw. But there's always going to be room for improvement. But anytime you can run the ball like that effectively too, it takes some stress off of the quarterback.
Coach, someone once told me it's hard to win football games, so congratulations. Enjoy this one.
Thank you. You guys have a great one.
Cheers.
Thank you. That is the head coach of the Hamilton Ticats, Orlando Steinauer. Exclusive access to the coaching room presented by Access Stories. I actually got Coach to laugh there. Did you hear that at the end?
I did.
I'm enjoying that. I didn't think he'd get a chuckle out of that, but I'm glad he did. All right, we're going to be joined by Jeremiah Masoli in just a little bit. And, what more can we say about Jeremiah that we haven't already said? He is – anyone who doesn't think he's an elite quarterback in this league right now, what are you watching? Jeremiah, his resume speaks for itself. What he's done this season speaks for itself. I'm sick of wasting hot air trying to defend Jeremiah Masoli, because at this point, if you're sitting here and telling me that he's not the right guy for this team, then I don't know what you're watching.
Yeah, don't. I think you just stop it, because if anything, we're creating some controversy that's not even there. And calm, cool, collected is the guy, and we're joined by him right now.
Not to mention the best hair on the team. Jeremiah Masoli is here with us now. We go to the locker room and connect with Masoli. Exclusive post-game interview presented by Access Storage. Twos, take it away.
Soli, what's up, man? How does it feel right now?
It's good, man. Shoot, winning always feels great, man.
Winning is hard. Coach has mentioned that. These teams, especially the teams you've been playing as of late, they're desperate football teams, and you're seeing their best right down to the wire. Do you take a little bit more from these victories, kind of knocking out teams that I don't want to say you should beat, but knocking out teams that are knocking at the door?
Yeah, man, this is pro football, and those guys got a good team. They get paid, and just like us, and they come with a scheme. And it was wonderful to see us finish. Obviously we like to finish with a lot more points and not have it come down to that Hail Mary there. But I think it's just another opportunity for us to learn and get better, and not because we've lost like that before, right? A close game. So I think we're steadily increasing and getting better.
Zoli, I absolutely loved how you were in the end zone with Speedy, and I could see the intensity, and I honestly I felt like I was right down there with you. But what I wanted to ask was, I really enjoyed watching these younger receivers develop this season and really find their confidence and not like be more quarterback friendly, get the ball and then be aggressive with the yak yards. What have you? Can you talk a little bit about some of these receivers, about the Dunbar and Tim White, and then of course Ackland as well?
Yeah, man. Whenever they mess up, I just pull up all your film and show them how to get it done. No, I'm just joking. But no, honestly, man, those guys, you ahead, man. They've been working. A lot of them newer to the CFL, and they really gotten comfortable with the waggle, understanding, defenses, how it changes their routes and stuff like that. Like you said, getting friendly. And yeah, man, it was big. It was big to see Speedy be able to get that big playoff tonight. and finish that one in the end zone.
Jeremiah, I mean, that offensive line in front of you, like we've talked about it, the only consistent has been Rev, really, through the first 12 games. What does it mean to see a guy like Coulter step up, Jesse step up there at right guard, Travis on the left tackle? Guys have stepped up. It's one thing to preach next man up mentality. It's another thing to put it into practice. What did you see in front with the guys in front of you tonight that led you to the game you had?
No, man, super proud of the group. They a year. It doesn't matter who's in there. They just kind of have that pride about them in that room, that O-line room, that they want to keep the pocket clean and protect the quarterback. So they've done a heck of a job, man. The run game, as you see, is starting to roll now. So I've just been proud of the guys. It doesn't matter who's in there. Like Jesse came in tonight and played a heck of a game. So I was definitely proud of him and for them to stepping up to that challenge.
Masoli, it's so nice to see you kind of brush that dirt off your shoulder and get back to yourself and see that demeanor and your efficiency in taking care of the football. It's been great to see, and can't wait to watch you in this final stretch and into the playoffs, man. Good luck.
Appreciate it, too. Thank you, guys, man.
Yeah, before we let you go, 15,000 yards, man. How do you feel about that? 15,000 passing yards in the Canadian Football League. You've played some years here, but what does that mean to you to hit that number?
Yeah, it took me long enough. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's all stuff for later down the line, man. We focused on obviously feeling good about this win, but next week is big for us, so we're just focused on that, man.
Well, listen, if Task and Twos didn't drop the amount of passes they did, I'm sure you would have done it a lot earlier. Soli, thanks so much thanks for checking in with us. Appreciate it, brother.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
All right, that was Jeremiah Masoli, exclusive post-game interview presented by Access Storage. All right, big surprise here at the desk. We thought we were just going to have further breakdown of the game with Luke Tasker. No, we have some Alumnus Analysis roundtable because Courtney Stephen has joined us as well. So we got Courtney Stephen, Luke Tasker, Andy Fantuz. Luke, we'll start with you because, Jeremiah really throwing you under the bus there, saying he could have got to 15,000 a lot quicker.
I'm just joining. That doesn't sound like Jeremiah.
I don't know. I heard it.
He wasn't listening in.
Jeremiah, third straight win. He's now gone almost 150 pass attempts without an interception. More than that, when you look at him on the field, he's confident, he's having fun, and guys are buying into what he's selling.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, Andy, you asked the question about the young receivers that are part of this, and I think those young receivers are really benefiting from that confidence that you said, Louie B, that Masoli has on the field. He's calm, he's relaxed. When things start to break down, he keeps his eyes and his shoulders in a position to still make that play, but he's also taking what's given. If it's a 5-yard check down, then that's what he's taking, and it's almost like the way that he's approaching the game right now is just this sense of just refusing to turn the ball over. And one of the interesting things about tonight is that Mike Riley is playing the same way. Yeah. Neither of these guys were going to throw an interception tonight. It's like they refused to make a critical error, and it was kind of an impressive showdown of these, quarterbacks that have their names in the top, 50 of CFL history.
Courtney, defensively, it's going to fly under the radar, but the Ticats held their opponent. They held a great quarterback in Michael Riley to, 0 touchdown passes. Yeah, he threw for 330. Lucky Whitehead, they did a great job, but they held the BC Lions to under 20 points. And again, we look at what they had done in previous weeks, and I'm glad Jeremiah brought this up, was that, a month ago in a similar situation, they were giving up points late. They didn't do that tonight, which I think is a huge growth for this team.
I think that's the style of football that you got to play when the weather's cold. It's really, you got to fill up the cup, as they say, but you also have to do a good job of limiting what your opponent can do. In my analysis, I thought that the game was going to be a race to 21 points, who can get to 3 scores first, because BC had lost all of their games where they allowed 18 or more points, and we pushed them past that threshold today. And I thought that, it was close down the stretch, but the odds were on the Ticats side because the defense gave them working room early, and that allowed them to use the whole playbook for longer.
Yeah, Courtney, we thought that the BC had been kind of relying on that deep ball all season long, and it almost looked on that first drive of the game like the Cats were really deep and really letting letting it go underneath. And what do you think was like kind of game plan going into this game if you were on that in the locker room or on the coaching staff?
I know Coach O's theory about playing defense is you can go for 90% on your completions as long as they're where we want you to throw the ball. And so inviting them to do those underneath throws where you're not necessarily breaking the defense, but they're just flexing, bending, forcing you to be patient. I think that's really what they wanted them to do, BC. And they fell into that. Of course, Burnham, he got his catches. Some of them that make you scratch your head and say, man, did he really just do that? Like the one was a broken up pass. He fell on his back and somehow still managed to come up with it. You think to yourself, man, is anybody ever really going to shut this guy out? And you got to give them credit. They made a lot of plays, but fortunately, they didn't make enough.
Luke, to that point, Andy and I were talking about this at the half, and I'm sure you saw it from where you were watching with RJ. This game could have been a lot different for the Ticats, because there are going to be things that the Ticats look and say, if we had hit that, if we didn't take that penalty. You mentioned this a lot, the hidden yards, plays that were called back because of penalties. And I feel like the Ticats, this game could have been very dominantly Ticats, which is kind of a good thing at this point, is because you can look at a lot of the aspects of game. This is going to be a tough film session, regardless of the win. There's going to be a lot to review here in the film.
There is, and when you win, when you make those corrections after a win, it's so much easier. It's so much better to make those changes. And certainly tonight, the hidden yardage and penalties, and really just an inability to get BC's offense off the field in the second half. I mean, Michael Riley was just continued to take these long drives and to eat up the clock as they went down there. But again, the games start to slip. This kind of game will start to slip away once a turnover breaks the game open, and they were able to avoid that tonight. But it certainly wasn't the same game as Edmonton last week, where there was just explosive pass plays and just this really dynamic game. It was just two teams, trying to maintain possession of the ball and shrugging down the field.
It was a dogfight.
It was.
And to the very end. And again, we talked about this. Like, I feel like the Ticats learned from those previous losses where they were up 17-8. A situation where the Ticats found themselves. Yeah. Coach calls it a one-score game. Theoretically, a 10-point game in the CFL is a one-score game. And I feel like the Ticats took the lessons they learned. And Jeremiah even mentioned this, as I mentioned. Jeremiah said, we were in a similar situation. Courtney, you can take this from the defensive perspective. They took what they learned in that loss against Toronto, in those tough games where they were in it, they were winning. It feels like they took what they learned and they applied it tonight.
And I think you do a good job in the first three quarters, and it sets you up for the fourth. Because, yes, of course, the game was, 8 points or whatever at the end. But the key is that they were in the position of control at the end. And they weren't fighting and clawing in a tie game or a one-point game, but they were up by 8 points. That gave them ability to use the whole playbook, right? Mm-hmm. To call pressures, to call the cover zeros and whatnot, and to put pressure on BC to make a play.
What did you guys think about that onside kick?
I thought it was amazing from a punter.
Yeah.
But who do you think got it?
Was
it a lot closer than you thought it was going to be? Like it just seemed like they said Ticats ball and they moved on.
When I saw it live, I thought, it's BC ball for sure, because it's like Jalen Ackland went up for it, and he's just standing there like this, and somehow the ball went.
It's
20
a clean punch out.
So it punched. So I don't know what that rule is. I guess it's like basketball now, right? Like,
but it's last touch, right?
So that's what we thought, right?
So who do you think? What do you think it was? I'm surprised they didn't review it at least, right?
Personally, I thought that BC punched it out, and therefore it should have been their ball.
So I guess what they're arguing though, or why it stood, is that they're saying he punched the ball out, but it must have just left.
Still went
Ackland's
off
hands.
of Ackland's hand, like you said, like one of those like you said, twos, like it was like one of those like basketball like tipped type thing, going this way.
That was crazy, huh? I mean,
listen, you've been in special teams meetings before with Coach Reinbold. I'm sure he's going to be looking at that one.
If I was on the BC team, I would have been like, we had a perfect kick, and we made a great play on the ball, and they didn't even take a second look at it. I'd have been pissed.
Dude, the punter had to step in for the onside kick. That's classic.
After
Andy Fantuz,
after the kicker missed it, Court, what do you got?
I was going to say, you might practice that play once, at the end of the week on day 3. So literally, that was like perfect execution on something that you don't get a lot of reps doing. So honestly, kudos to them. They executed it, and they're probably upset that they didn't get the ball.
You know what? You know what it is? It's karma because I got to kick an onside kick against BC at Empire Stadium. That was the exact same thing.
So it's real karma. Yeah. It's two's karma.
I was on a different team, but regardless, it was one of those situations where I swear we had it, and then they just called it the other way, and then they just had the ball. Like they reviewed it and said, inconclusive. So
they didn't even review this one. We'll have to see what Rick Campbell had to say.
I think that a lot of people here maybe owe me a little thank you.
I think so.
The universe is back in balance.
It took a decade, but the universe has come back. He was playing for a different team, but the universe has come back in balance. To a task. Ticats clinched a playoff spot. You've mentioned this before. Like normally, like the Ticats don't control their own destiny. Normally, like there were years where
it happened
had
a lot. Yeah,
right. Again, don't want to say it like that, but you've said it. But what does it mean to control your own destiny at this point? Like 2 games left of the season. The Argos next week, regardless of what happens to the Argos game, like hopefully the Argos lose, obviously tomorrow to the Red Blacks. Probably won't happen. But to be able to control your own destiny at this point, it seems like you don't have to worry about what anyone else does. You just control what you can control.
100%. I think, but it is different than like say 2019, where the Ticats had their first place in the East locked up early, where there's still plenty of reason to play. I mean, you wouldn't believe the motivation that a potential extra bye week gives you to play hard, right? I mean, that is a huge difference after a whole season ends, that you get to then take a rest while your competition has to go and fight for their livelihood. So just a chance to be guaranteed a chance in the postseason, that's fantastic. But I guarantee you the message from Coach O tomorrow when the team meeting is going to be, there is so much still on the line for this Toronto game.
Yeah, it's a free check for one. It's a free
True.
like a bye in the playoffs, and then you have 2 games for the cup, and they're both at home. So, I mean, it's the ultimate motivation. I couldn't agree with you more.
A dash for the cash with mustaches.
There you go. Dash for the cash with a stash.
With the stash.
So awesome.
Court, to that point, like you said, you were a lot of these teams that Luke was playing on too. Like, you control your own destiny. Like, not having to worry about outside factors. Control what you can control. Like, it's cliche. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to actually, like, who cares? Who cares what Montreal does tomorrow? Who cares what they do in week 15? Just do what you can do. Get better at practice. Be a better team than you were yesterday.
Like, I don't want to be the old guy in the room, but I think the coach is going to give that message regardless.
Yeah.
So it's what are we going to do? And O is the one who says this all the time in his interviews. We don't play streaks. We don't play records. We don't play situations. It's whatever team is coming up. That's who we're going to play. So it's like, honest to God, I can't control what's going to happen except they're going to put a receiver out there, and I just got to cover him. So as a player, I'm thinking like, yeah, I got an extra check coming for sure. I might be able to get in my own hot tub before the next game. But other than that, it's just another week of football. But this time, we're only 1 step away from the cup if we get that bye. So that's what they're playing for. They're playing for that extra hot tub.
Offensively, for this, you go into these last 2 games where you're guaranteed playoffs, but you got some things still to earn. The Ticats have a very young receiver group, and not a single receiver has hit 100-yard in a game benchmark yet. We'll see what happens with Speedy B and what the team wants to do about potentially resting a guy like that, a veteran who could potentially be really valuable in the postseason. But a lot of these young guys, they'd rather a chance to get more catches than a bye week, honestly, and I think that we're going to see some of these guys continue to increase like we have over the last month or so of the Ticats season. Jeremiah and the chemistry with some of these young guys, Tim White and Stephen Dunbar Jr., and of course Jalen Acklin, although not a rookie anymore, but just see that chemistry just continue to grow and take advantage of the 2 games left.
You say that not a rookie anymore, but I mean, he's still only got 18, 20 games, 30 games under his belt.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy?
We talk about him being experienced. What do you got, Court?
To your point, Luke, we're playing in a shortened season too, guys, after taking a whole year off. So you got to think, the first couple of games was really shaking off the rust, and guys are just now hitting their stride, getting into what would be called mid-season form. So I think it's useful to get more reps.
Those 2 games, I mean, we can't ignore those first 2 games of the Ticats. I mean, but going on the road in Winnipeg, going on the road in Saskatchewan, the Ticats weren't the same team they are now. But, coach didn't admit to it, but those looked preseason-esque. Right, and if you take those games out, we're talking about a Ticats team that's 7-3. Like, Ticats are 7-3 in their last 10 games. Like, full stop. Like, that's a pretty good record through 10 games in the Canadian Football League. It's believe me, I've heard from multiple people, it's hard to win football games. But to be 7-3 in your last 10 games, and to that point, Luke, I mean, like, it's cold. Like, when you're winning football games, when the weather dips and, the wind's cold and task when it's chilly, winning football games in November is hard to do.
Another thing I've heard, though, is you are what your record says you are.
Yeah.
And regardless of, you can't, every team's playing in the cold. Every team didn't have preseason. Yeah, you played like, like poop in the first couple games, and you lost a couple tight games. But
we'll have to bleep that out in the postgame. David Butko, make sure to bleep that out in the postgame.
But you are what your record says you are, and I think overall, you're looking at this Tiger Cat team, and they could be a lot better. But have they played that much better than a 7-5 team? I mean, I think it's pretty accurate overall. I mean, it could be a little better one way or the other, but you are what your record says you are. And, they still got a long way to go to be where they want to be, but they control their own destiny, so it's perfect.
Berta let it go. I thought I'd get a reaction from Task on that one.
What's that now?
Berta let it go?
Oh, Berta let it go. Oh, of course. Yeah,
but again, I think it's your own line.
I know.
Just no reaction to it.
You didn't deliver it the right way.
Oh, sorry.
Come on.
You
got to Berta let it happen.
Berta let it happen. All right, before we say goodbye, let's revisit Andy's Car Start Keys to Victory. Andy, how did we do tonight? What did you have for number 1?
Number 1 was no long TDs for BC, and that's a big thumbs up for me. They had
I like that one too. That's creative and important. I like that.
Yeah, they didn't have any long returns at all. They had an 8-yard touchdown, a 1-yard touchdown, and actually, even with 330 yards passing, Mike Riley's long for the day was only 23 yards, and that's hard to believe. I mean, you look incredible. At it, you have over 300 yards passing. You think you're going to get one chunk of at least 25 yards or more, and so Tiger Cats were definitely bend don't break, and they didn't let anything behind them, and that was a big thumbs up.
To that point, just 2 completions over 20 yards, a 21-yard completion to Burnham late, and a 23-yard completion to Rhymes, like you had said. So good job on that one, and like we had said that Riley came in to this game, he had thrown 5 passes of more than 20 yards or more downfield. So Ticats doing a good job of that one. Defensively, Courtney, while we have you here, Tunde, just a position you know very well in the field. Tunde Adelke, he is really directing that secondary just as well as I've seen him in years. He looks really good back there.
And I think that's where it starts with the defense, because when you have confidence that the guy who can see it all, who has the best vision, is going to make sure that you're in the right place to make your play, that kind of stuff is contagious. And I think you can see that working through the back end. He's doing a great job stepping up, maturing week by week. And he's always around the ball, man. He's got a nose for it. So it's good to see him grow and develop.
Des Lawrence, again, another interception. He looks really good, too. So, Ticats secondary doing a great job helping with key to victory number 1. What did you have for number 2?
Number 2 was pound the rock. And there was a couple reasons for that. It was certainly to keep the momentum with Don Jackson and get that offensive line firing off the ball, moving forward, and give the big boys some love. And you got to get that group rolling to go into the playoffs, and I'm giving it a thumbs up. Not quite as impressive as last game, but they still had 124 rushing yards total. Jackson had a couple really nice runs. STE's touchdown. I don't even know how he made that move to avoid that tackle and get in the end zone. So overall, that was a thumbs up. Like you said, they didn't control the amount of plays. BC had a lot more plays, 20 more plays in them, offensive plays. And that was kind of part of that one. But overall, yeah, still thumbs up.
To that point, Andy, the run game tonight, I think one of the turning points in this game, and something that the Ticats are doing now that they didn't do earlier in the season, came to that drive with Sean Thomas Erlington scoring that touchdown. The BC offense was starting to sort of steal the momentum away from the game, and that was a beautiful 6-play drive with 3-pass, 3-run, Don Jackson pounding the rock, and then Sean Thomas Erlington getting the score and finishing off with a great run. But it was a really great balance between run and pass, and at a time in the game where they needed to take a little bit of momentum back. It was just great execution at a good point in the game.
Don Jackson, 200 yards over the last 2 games. And again, like you said, that 31-yard drive really kind of set the tone for that final touchdown run for Sean Thomas Erlington. So pound the rock. Ticats 2 for 2 on the keys to victory. What'd you have for number 3?
Number 3 was win the turnover battle, and the one Des Lawrence interception was the only turnover of the game. There was some great defensive pressure to cause not allow Mike Riley to step in that throw, and then the wind caught it a bit too. So probably one of his easier interceptions, to be honest, but still, it's most importantly, the Tiger Cats did not give away the ball, and they continue to do that week after week. This is 7 games in a row now. They have an interception. If they continue to do that going forward, that's a recipe for success.
The thing I love about that pick, too, is that it looked so easy.
Yeah.
He played with perfect technique. You're in a zone coverage, so when the receiver did a double move, his eyes were on the quarterback. He had him in the hip pocket, didn't bite on the double move because he's watching the quarterback action. He gives a flimsy pump fake, Mike Riley does, and then airs it up. It's just practice. You're jumping up and catching a high point.
Love that.
I'm glad you're here. I'm just saying, you made an easy pick. I could have been out there and made it. No, it would have been a touchdown, for BC if I was out there. So
Task, win the turnover battle. We talked about this. Jeremiah Masoli, the way he's been protecting the football, it just 5 games now without interception, 150 passing attempts without an interception. More than that, just ball control. Even when he does, we saw him take a solid hit on a run. When he throws it away, a lot of people are going to look at kind of those throwaways, to nobody and think, oh, he missed him. But he made the smart play to throw it there instead of somewhere else. What have you seen from Masoli, especially as of late, where it comes to protecting the football?
Yeah, I think even in the pocket, he's got the ball in a good place, in a safe place where you never know when where you're going to get an unexpected hit. And quarterbacks have to have it in mind to keep the ball in a good place. He was giving everything he had to get a first down to keep that drive alive, and he lowered his shoulder high and tight, kept the ball tucked. Hamilton's 3rd in the league in their turnover ratio, behind, of course, Sask and Winnipeg. It's such a telling stat. It's the best teams have the best turnover ratios. But I think Soli's just calmness, and you bring up a good point, Louie, that. Andy, I don't know what you thought about Don Jackson got in. They had a cover 0, great matchup. Don Jackson was out against the linebacker, but
a yard.
Andy Fantuz pulls that catch in. I know.
Well, Andy Fantuz is 6'4".
You know what I mean.
The wingspan of Andy Fantuz versus Don Jackson.
You know what people don't give enough credit for is when you're close to the middle of the field, so you're essentially running one-way full speed and trying to look over your shoulder almost 180 at the ball. Yeah. It's more challenging to not lose speed than you think, and you could see him the first time he looked over his shoulder. And running backs have less experience than receivers. You could see him slow down on that first one, and then he had to look forward, and then he was just too late at that point. But you got shoulder pads on it, and running backs are built a little bit differently than receivers too, right? They got a little thicker upper body, shoulders, neck. So it's hard to kind of run and look
to that
without
point,
slowing down.
In the film room, when Coach Tommy shows that,
100%.
It's not going to be harsh criticism. It's going to be, we missed it by this much.
Yeah, but he'll bring up the technique. It's the Cobra strike.
It's the one step.
One step, you got to keep your hands running, just like how you run, and then throw your hands at the last second. You got to throw a punch to catch the ball, and it's an unusual position for running back to be in. But to the point, I think it was a perfect throw by Jeremiah Masoli.
Yeah.
He floated it too to give it, because that is hard to adjust to that. It was beautiful. Could have been a huge play, but slight edges and small misses.
Court, Ticats are 7-5. They got 2 games left in the season. They're in Toronto. They host Saskatchewan. Just final thoughts on this one and just kind of how they move forward from it.
I think it's awesome, the schedule, the way it's laid out, because you're playing a team that you're most likely going to see in a couple weeks. when the chips are down. So there's not going to be too much that you can keep held back. Of course, the playoffs, you're going to throw some wrinkles in, but a team is who they are at the end of the day. So you're going to see their stars come out. You're going to compete. You're rivals, and you're competing to see who's going to play at home in the playoffs. So I like that we got Toronto, and Sask is always a great competition. It'll be great to go up against them.
Task to that point, could there be a better opponent for the Ticats to face next week than the Argos? I mean, it's the ultimate measuring stick, it feels like.
It is. It's perfect. And you're going right down to the second home field of the Hamilton Ticats.
That's a great point. And that's a great point, too, because Ticats fans are going to travel well, especially a winning Ticat. You're talking about a Ticats team that's won 3 straight. Going to Toronto, it's going to be 50-50 at BMO.
Ticket sales just went up by 20% tonight.
The Argos ticket reps are working the phones tonight trying to get the Ticats in the building. But they're, really the perfect opponent for the Ticats to really are these 3 wins against teams out of the playoff picture legit? Because that's going to be the biggest knock on the Ticats over the last 3 games. Is that they're out of the playoff picture? They weren't any good anyway.
I think that Michael Riley was playing tonight like a guy trying to make the playoffs. Yeah. I don't think that's a reasonable knock. Edmonton still had a chance during the game last week, but they have legitimate struggles in that franchise right now. Toronto, like Hamilton, Andy, to your point earlier, you are what your record shows. They've had so many close games that they turn into wins. And they earn that. They get that. They get that in the win column, but they haven't had dominating performances. Right. This will be a great matchup, and I hope honestly, just for the excitement of the CFL, I hope that this game coming up in Toronto does get rematched in a couple weeks in the playoffs.
How about this? First time since 2015 that there will be no crossover. We've guaranteed that there will be no crossover in the CFL this season. 3 teams in the East Division will go up for the East Division for the first time since 2015, where the Hamilton Tiger Cats beat the Toronto Argonauts on a field goal to win it. I'm trying to think who kicked it. Who was
Justin Medlock.
Justin Medlock.
It was a super long field goal.
It was a 48-yarder, and I have a picture on my phone. It's Ken Austin, kind of just one fist raise out of a super. Like that was the last time, 2015. I think it was the first when we opened Tim Hortons Field. Was the last time that there was no crossover.
And then we went to Ottawa for the Eastern.
Oh, well, we don't need to talk about that, boys. We don't need to talk about that. Two's final thoughts here.
You threw me off there. I was thinking about that play. I'm like 2015, 2014.
That was the Justin Medlock field goal as time expired, and that was the year we opened Tim Hortons Field, I believe.
No, 2014.
Okay, so
it
that
was
was
the first
year
the team was 100% in the facility.
Yes, that was Justin Medlock hitting the field goal as time expired to send the Ticats to the East Final. We know how it ended, but that's 2015. No crossover. That's
well, you know what?
Years.
You got the clearly the 6 best teams this year are in the playoffs, and that's the way you want to have it. Yeah. And now it's just a fight, and everyone has a fight to see who's going to be finishing what place. Obviously Winnipeg's first, and then I think Calgary still has a chance, and then of course in the East it's wide open to see where they play. So it's perfect. This is CFL football at its finest.
Well, Saskatchewan and Edmonton tied at 3 as they're in the second quarter. We'll watch the scoreboard for the rest of the weekend. But boys, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good stuff, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. The final score, the Hamilton Tiger Cats 26, the BC Lions 18. For Andy Fantuz, I'm Louie B, and for Courtney, Stephen, and Luke Tasker, I'm also Louie B. We'll be back for Tiger Cats pregame presented by Active Green and Ross on October 20th. Well, that's not the right date.
November 20th.
November 20th. I'll blame that one on Dave Cadeau. But thanks to Dave Cadeau for executive producing. Thanks to David Butko. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for David Butko, for the audio producer, Michael Stripe as well. Everybody involved. We are back next week when the Ticats take on the Toronto Argonauts in Toronto. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to listen to Ticats Today and all the other great shows we have for you on the Ticats Audio Network. For the Ticats Audio Network, I'm Louie B. Hoping you have a great night.